Chapter 19, Part 2. We think actually that they had an opportunity to do it and declined to do so. We have some information that they looked at in 1994 and concluded that they couldn't make a match any longer. This is not a battle of experts. We would welcome any expert the state could identify that the courts appoint to look at this evidence and disagree with our findings. We have 3 experts from different places because we want to make it clear that this is not a battle of experts. We think any competent, trained expert that looks at this evidence now is going to come to the same conclusion about how these bullets were not fired from a single weapon. They were not fired from the weapon discovered from Mr. Hinton. That is our evidence. I watched amazed as Assistant Attorney General House argued with Bryan about Payne being a competent expert. At the time of my trial, they called him all sorts of names. Expert wasn't one of them. Bryan argued that the new evidence established my innocence, and this made evidence allowed in Rule 32 proceeding. House turned to the judge. To the extent that Mr. Stevenson is attempting to make an actual innocence claim that is constitutional, the U.S. Supreme Court does not recognize actual innocence as a constitutional claim through which you can bring a habeas corpus action. I knew habeas corpus action was part of the federal appeals process that we would begin if I lost in all the state courts. I didn't want to think about that. Bryan had told me the federal appeals process was extremely narrow and difficult. Bryan cleared his throat. I feel some need, Your Honor, to just kind of be real clear about what we're saying here. And I can expect this court to do anything but hear me when I say this. But we believe this man is innocent. Innocent. And that is why we think the evidence is so crucial. And this is not like any standard Rule 32 case. It's not even like a standard death penalty case. The temptation that the Court of Criminal Appeals will have to face if they hear an argument from the state of Alabama that this evidence should have been precluded in appeal, in my judgment, is nothing like the temptation to ignore the possible execution of an innocent man. We believe this evidence is compelling. We believe it's compelling and will be compelling to this court. We believe it ought to be compelling to the state, but we think we ought to have the right to present it. Judge Garrett was silent for a minute, then asked, what makes this evidence so different from the evidence which was presented at trial, except that it's by different persons? Bryan explained that it was rare to have 3 different experts separately find the same thing, and even rarer that several people looked at evidence, found the same thing, and the thing is not what was presented at trial. He also pointed out that no one from the state could have prepared to prove a match now or say that they could find exactly what was found in 1985. Let me say this, Judge Garrett began. Mr. Payne has been recognized or was recognized as an expert and testified both in criminal courts and civil all over the state. Well, he was characterized by the state at trial, Your Honor, as a charlatan, as someone who didn't know anything like this kind of testimony. He was mocked. Oh, well, I see that on experts quite often by either side, but you rarely see one, Your Honor, who's legally blind, who could not operate the machine, who had never been qualified for this kind of examination in this kind of case, and that's the distinction. Garrett didn't respond, so Bryan continued. What we have are experts or leaders in the Association of Firearms and tool mark examinations. Mr. Dillon was the head of the FBI in their unit for many years. Its former past president for the Association of Firearm and Tool Mark Examiners. He's taught all over the country, consults with the FBI, consults with the ATF. Mr. Emanuel and Mr. Cooper work mostly for the prosecution. They work for the United States military, the state of Texas. They work for the Dallas County prosecutors regularly. These experts have testified and examined over 200,000 cases. They've been qualified over 200 times. They're leaders in this field. We've spared no cost in giving the people we could identify as the best in the country because we really want to make it clear to the court that this isn't about a mere dispute, but about a crucial piece of factual evidence on this conviction stand. It should have been enough for Garrett. We had unimpeachable experts, men who had every reason to find me guilty. House fought it the whole way. Garrett argued to the state side as well, but Bryan never faltered. I had never seen him like this. God's best lawyer was preaching the law at them like the law had never been preached at them before. I wish I had Bryan on my case in 1985. I had never gone to death row. I probably would have never even gone on trial. It wasn't fair that justice could be so arbitrary and the truth so hard for the state to admit. How could Garrett sit there and say Payne was a qualified expert? How could he, in a good conscience, when the state had argued the opposite? Bryan didn't back down an inch. What you're saying, Your Honor, is that the state made a mistake. It's made a mistake case, and what I hear the state to be arguing that it's too late. If they made a mistake, you can't do anything about it. We don't care about the innocence. We don't care about your evidence. We don't care about the strength of your claim. It's too late. We're going to move on, and we're going to have this case move towards execution. What I'm saying is that's not what the law says. It should be unconscionable results. They made a mistake, and we think we could show that. They argued back and forth until lunch. The state didn't think any of our claims should be allowed to be presented at this hearing. They just wanted Bryan to shut up and for me to go back to the death chamber. Bryan persisted, and ultimately Garrett let the hearing happen, and we were allowed to present all our evidence and witnesses. The state didn't defend the fact that Bryan found worksheets that Higgins and Yates and McGregor hadn't turned over to perhaps that were full of question marks and hyphens and showed that they didn't know what markings were on the bullets. And they certainly didn't show the bullets from the victim's match the test bullets from my mom's gun. They didn't defend any of it. They didn't think they needed to test the bullets or the gun again. In their mind, none of this was allowed because it was time barred and it didn't count as new evidence. Based on their obscure interpretation of the rules of appeal, I don't think proof for innocence should ever be discarded. Who are we if we allow that? What part of our system is working if an innocent man can be killed and no one cares because of the rules they were made to be able to kill him quickly, like it was some kind of game? The clock was ticking. Prove your innocence in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Too late now and off with your head. I was taken back to Holman after the hearing. Brian was brilliant in court, but it was like he was talking to a wall. They wanted me dead, guilty or innocent. They just wanted to kill me. I hadn't been able to talk to my mom or Lester before I was taken away from the hearing. My mom had her head resting on Lester's shoulder and her eyes closed. She was safe. Lester would keep her safe. I knew Brian would talk to them and offer them encouraging words, just as he always offered them to me. I should have been excited, but I didn't have a lot of faith. Our evidence was compelling, but it was the same old cast of characters who had put me away to begin with, plus the assistant attorney general who thought I was nothing but a waste of time. I went back to my cell and ignored the questions of the guys asking how it went. Even the guards wanted to know and seemed hopeful that I might get released. Some nights, however, just called for silence and prayer, and on the road, we knew not to push. There were a lot of bad days and a lot of bad nights, and if someone didn't want to talk, you backed off. Survival was at stake, and we cared enough for each other to let each other survive in our own way. I woke up to a bootleg book club discussion. The thought of the book club made me sad. When I thought about it, all I could think of was those empty chairs in the library as they killed us off one by one. First Lester, then Horsley, Henry, then Brian, and finally Victor. Nothing but empty chairs with every execution. After they had closed us down, the books we had read, plus some new ones, circulated around the tiers. There was no meeting in the library, but guys could still talk about the books, yelling from cell to cell. If you hadn't read the book, you just listened. If you had read the book, you could give ideas, offer opinions, or always questions get thrown at me as if I were the book club teacher. I didn't know the answers. I told the guys that there was no right or wrong in the book club. You had your own thoughts and interpretations and beliefs and ideas. It was new for a lot of guys giving their honest opinion and having that listened to and respected. There was a new kind of drug that traveled around the road. Matters of the heart were discussed. Politics were discussed. Racism and poverty were discussed. Violence was discussed. And if you had already discussed the book, you let others have the discussion. Let them have a chance to talk their way through the big ideas. Ray, you listening, Ray? It was a guy named Jimmy Deal. Jimmy was a former drug addict who had been going to nursing school before he was convicted of robbing and killing a man for cocaine and a couple $100. He had a broad forehead and brown eyes that were spread just a little too far apart on his face. It made him look a bit unsure of himself when he talked. Jimmy loved to eat all day long. He would talk about his favorite foods: okra, biscuits, fried chicken. It was enough to drive you crazy, but Jimmy had a kindness about him that made it hard to imagine him shooting someone in the back of the head. What you need, Jimmy? I asked. I want to read that book, To Kill a Mockingbird. Do you have it? I have it. Can you send it my way with the guards next time they come around? He asked. I can. Okay, Johnson wants to read it too. We're going to talk about it after. I heard it's good. I don't know if that white boy is going to understand it, but we'll see what he has to say. I heard a few of the guys laugh. This was how it worked. And the book or books would get passed around, and then one day, without any planning, someone would yell, "How about that scout girl?" And the discussion would begin. That summer was hot and slow. We were waiting for word back from Judge Garrett about my Rule 32 petition, but there was nothing but silence. I couldn't imagine it would have taken him more than the summer to rule. He was the judge in the original trial. He knew the case inside and out. Where I used to pray that truth would come out, and now I pray that the truth would be heard. The truth was proven in that hearing. I was innocent, I had been set up, I had been thrown away. I needed Garrett to do the right thing. I needed him to do the honorable thing. I needed to get out. Lester's visit in October had been the hottest day of the year. It felt like it was 120 degrees in the shade, and without air, I thought we were all going to melt into a puddle on the visiting yard. I tried to keep my visiting whites clean and fresh, but I was sweating so hard that I decided to cut the visit short just so he and Sia could get back to the air conditioning in the car. Lester, before you go, one more thing, I said. What's that? What do you need? Lester got me everything I needed, even before I needed it. He made sure I went with commissary or a television and a radio or extra socks and shorts. I need my birth certificate. You're what? I'm going to need my birth certificate, so when I get out of here, I won't have any identification. I'm going to need some, and all I'm going to have to prove who I am is my birth certificate. Lester was quiet for a minute or so. He looked down at the ground and then took a breath. You're going to need that, he said, and then he gave me a big smile. How should I go about getting it to you? I will mail it to you, but tell me where to find it. You know God can do everything but fail, right? That's right. God is going to have to release me or be proven a liar. How do you figure that? What things soever you desire, when you pray, believe that you receive them, you shall have them. Mark 11:24, I said. Lester smiled. He knew that was my favorite. I haven't talked about it a million times before. What about it? God can't fail, therefore this scripture has to be true. And I have to be set free. Your God is a liar because he would have failed. You're trying to trap God in some kind of loophole, Lester laughed. Man, you really should have been a lawyer. Maybe I will be. Maybe I will get out of here, go to law school, and start working with Brian to start freeing all these innocent men up in here. Put it in the death penalty once and for all. Maybe I will. I was 46 years old, and we both knew I was too old to go to law school, even if I walked out of there with Brian. Or maybe I will open up a restaurant. You know I can cook. Yeah. What are you going to call this restaurant of yours? Behind bars at Death Row Grill. I started laughing. That's just sick now. No one wants to eat what they're grilled up on death row. People would eat my barbecue no matter where I was grilling it. Even the guards are having me cook their meals in their break room. Get me out of my cell. I can work on my menu for when I walk out of here. Okay, I'll get your birth certificate. I'll talk to your sister. Why don't you ask my mom? She might have it. A shadow passed over Lester's face for a brief second. There was something there I didn't want to look or think about. Okay, I'll ask them both, and I'll get it. I looked over at Sylvia, who was smiling as big as she could be. What are you smiling at? You're going to walk out of here, Ray. We all know it, and it's going to be a happy day, a bright day. It's going to be soon. We'll get the birth certificate, and then you can come to our house and cook us some dinner. You'd better count on it, I said. It was September 22nd, 2002, when the captain of guards came to my cell. Ray, I got some news for you. I stood and looked at him, standing in the doorway, and I felt my heart begin to pound. It wasn't news of my release. I had seen enough death in there to know the way it showed in a man's face. He had death on his face, and even before he said it, the screaming began in my head. It's your mom, Ray. She died today. We just got word. I'm sorry. The other guards and I want to offer our condolences. I didn't say a word. The screaming in my head was so loud, I just wanted him to leave so I could put up the pillow over my ears. I turned my back to him and walked a few feet to stand on my bed. I leaned over at the waist, my palms resting on the bed. I wondered if I was going to pass out. He cleared his throat, and then I heard his footsteps walk away. I cried quietly at first, and then it was as if my body was possessed because it started shaking so hard I couldn't even hold my hand in front of my face. Maybe I was having a seizure. I didn't care. I felt my stomach turn over, and I ran to the toilet thinking I might throw up. I wanted my mama. She was dead. I couldn't understand what kind of world this was now. I was nothing. I was nobody. I was Buller Hinton's son, and Buller Hinton was dead. I started sobbing, the deepest cries I have ever felt. It was like my body was turning itself inside out. She had died and I wasn't there. I couldn't live with that. I couldn't even breathe with the thought I wasn't there. I was here. I couldn't get to hold my mom when she passed. I would never get to hold her again. I couldn't tell her that I loved her. I couldn't tell her goodbye. When are they going to let you come home, baby? I could hear her voice. Soon, Mama. I'm going to be home soon. I had lied to my mom. I hadn't come home. Not soon. Not ever. I had lied to her. She had died without me to take care of her. I pushed my face into the pillow and let the tears fall until it was so wet I wondered if my tear ducts had slipped wide open. None of it mattered anymore. Brian, the hearing whether I lived or I died, getting out of here, what did it matter? My mama was dead. I was going home to her, and she had gone home first. It felt like a million razors were slicing through my chest. Maybe I could have a heart attack. I could drop dead and be with her in moments. I will be home soon, Mama, I promise. I didn't know how long I cried. When I lifted my head up, the lights were out. I knew word had gotten around the road, but I had ignored people trying to send me coffee. I had ignored their condolences. I just didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to recover from this. I couldn't go somewhere in my mind and pretend my mother wasn't dead. Sandra Bullock wasn't real, and she wasn't there to comfort me. I was Ray Hinton, a condemned man on death row who couldn't convince anyone he was innocent. I lay on my back for hours, then I heard a deep voice say, "The only person who believed you were innocent is gone." I nodded, and the voice continued. "Why keep fighting? Why let them execute you? Take away their power. There's nothing to live for now. Let Brian Stevenson save someone else. There's no use in staying here. They're never going to let you leave. You're just a poor dumb nigger, and no one cares if you live or die. They're going to kill you one way or another." And on the voice went, and I listened to it. I listened to it until it took me to the darkest place I had ever been, darker than those first 3 years in a row. My mom always had the flicker of light in those years. But now there was nothing but darkness, flatness. It was like all light ceased to exist. There was no hope. There was no love. My life was over. I knew this in the quiet way you know some things to be true. I had felt there was nothing left inside me to keep going. I didn't want to live. I didn't deserve to live. I didn't have the strength to live. They had won, and I was okay with that. I was ready to go. I took a deep breath. My face felt raw in the darkness. My eyes were swollen and gritty. I had to figure out how to do it. I was too tired to smash my own head in. I didn't have anything sharp to cut my wrist. I would have to hang myself somehow. It would be morning soon, and then I would wrap the sheets around my neck and find some way to hang myself in my cell. Boy, I ain't raised no quitter. I heard my mom's voice loud and sharp. I automatically flinched because I knew that tone of voice always preceded a smack upside the head. I sat up in my bed. I didn't raise a critter. You're not going to quit. I looked around my cell in the darkness. I didn't believe in ghosts, but I could hear my mama's voice as plain as day. You're going to get out of here. You're going to keep fighting. I'm tired, Mama. I want to be with you, I whispered. I want to hurt them like they hurt us. They want to kill me, and I don't want to give them that chance. There's a time to live and a time to die. This is my time to die. No use crying about it. You knew I had cancer. You didn't want to talk about it, but you knew. I started crying again. She was right. This isn't your time to die, son. It's not. You have work to do. You have to prove to them that my baby is no killer. You have to show them you are a beacon. You are the light. Don't you listen to that fool devil telling you to give up. I didn't raise no child of mine to give up when things get tough. Your life isn't your life to take. It belongs to God. You have work to do. Hard work. I'm going to talk at you all night long if I have to, and all day and all night again. And I will never stop until you know who you are. You were not born to die in this cell. God has a purpose for you. He has a purpose for all of us. I served my purpose. I cried softly as she talked. Now wipe them tears, Ray, and you get up and you get in service to someone else. There's no time to be crying about yourself. There's no cause to be listening to the devil's voice in your head telling you that nothing matters. It all matters. You matter. You are my baby, and you matter more than anything in the world. When I'm done talking to you, I'm going to be talking at God. He's going to listen to me if I have to talk to him for all eternity. He's going to get you out of there, or he's going to have a hard time of that. That's for sure. Okay, Mama, I whispered. Don't disappoint me, Ray. I taught you to believe in yourself, even if no one else in the world believes in you. Do you believe in you? Do you? I nodded in the darkness. Well, then, the next time that devil tells you to wrap a bedsheet around your neck, and you tell him to go to hell where he belongs. I laughed softly. Yes, Mama. I'm going to talk to God, and we're going to give Mr. Brian Stevenson a little help from here. There's a time to live and a time to die, Ray. Yes, Mama. It will never be your time to die in that place. Never. Yes, Mama. I'm not fooling this time, Ray. Don't make me come back here. I fell asleep then, a deep, dreamless sleep, and when I woke up, it was long after breakfast, almost time for lunch. The gifts started arriving immediately after I woke up. Coffee, chocolate, sweets of all kinds, cards, book. Death Row was holding its own memorial in the only way it knew how. She loved you a lot, Ray. I've never seen a mother love her son more. She's proud of you. Rest in peace, Ray. I'm sorry, Ray. My condolences, Ray. All through the day and into the night, the men shouted out their words of sympathy. Sorrow shared is sorrow lesson. And then I heard Jimmy Deal, Ray. He yelled, can you help me with something? I took a deep breath. My mama told me to be in service to someone else. What do you need? In the book it says they've done it before and they did it tonight and they'll do it again and when they do it, seems that only children weep. What does that mean exactly? I smiled. It seemed book club had started. Well, Atticus says that after the verdict, right? Yeah. I think it's because only the child cries when an innocent man is convicted. All the adults just accept it. It's happened before and it will happen again. What do you think? I asked. I think that's right, Ray. I think that's right. But here's what I want to say. Just because they've done it before and they'll do it again doesn't mean you stop fighting, right? I don't think it's something people should ever get used to, do you? I don't think people should get used to injustice, I said. You know what we have to do then, Ray, right? You know what we always have to do. What's that? You have to fight, Ray. You are never going to stop fighting. And if I didn't know better, I would have thought that the voice of my mother was coming out of the convicted killer on death row by the name of Jimmy Deal.